Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, nerds, and welcome to another episode of NerdyVerse.
I would like to
am
play a game.
John. Yes.
I would like to play a game.
Apparently. Yes, that is why we're here. You are all now a part of a game.
Sitting
So-
in front of you are two microphones.
Right. Right.
Only one of them has a key
There's
inside
probably a potted plant in your room. It's out to get you. No.
it.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but in case this is somehow your first episode, I'm sorry. But
I'm not.
yeah, we are talking about the Saw franchise for the next little bit of Nerdyverse. And so while Star Wars is always near and dear to our hearts, and it's what we love most, and it makes
Yes.
us, we love a lot of things, and horror is one of those. And we haven't had the chance yet with Nerdyverse to really dive into that. We've definitely referenced it and talked about it, but never really dove in to something we enjoy about the horror genre
Yes.
of film, comic, TV, and all that stuff.
Manga.
Obviously, Saw is a film franchise, although there's some other stuff out there, and so it's not necessarily our favorite. That's not why we're talking about it, and it somehow gets to be the first. It's just something we enjoy, but with the new movie coming out, the from the Book of Saw, Spiral,
Mm-hmm.
they got to work on that title.
Hence the Uzumaki shirt.
Yeah, sure. I guess that
It's
fits.
Japanese for spiral.
Sure. Okay. With it, it's one of those things where normally under these circumstances, I think we would talk about an actual favorite or an iconic one, something a little bit maybe more relatable, something more people probably have seen and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Saw's a little bit divisive, but again, because it's got a new film coming out, that's what decided it would be the first we discuss. It's just the way the universe aligned. So there you go.
It's the way the universe crumbles.
Right. And so, yeah, again, the Saw franchise is a little bit divisive. So,
Yes.
although this isn't a favorite in terms of horror genres, I do think I have a special place for this one in terms of helping people understand that it's more than just the gore that it's presented to be.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't enjoy the movies themselves, there is a really interesting story woven throughout the existing 8 films, with the ninth coming soon.
Yeah.
And then really that's what we're going to talk about most is trying to understand the story of Saw.
Trying for dear life.
It's
to
actually not that
understand
hard,
Saw.
but it's a matter of if you've watched these movies, maybe there's more to it. It can be very easy to turn your brain off and watch these going from scare to scare, gore to gore, and end up with,
Yeah.
the guy didn't get out anyway because that's humanity for you. It's all hopeless. But like, it's easy to not miss the bigger parts of the story, but kind of just watch it as it's being presented and not connect it film to film and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or it's also easy just to not watch the movies because you think there is no story and all of that stuff.
Yes, I will say, I didn't watch any of the Saw movies until maybe 2016,
I was
2017.
going to say about 2016 maybe.
Yeah, you had been telling me for the longest time, it's not just gore, it's not just torture porn, it's more than that for the longest time,
Right.
but this was before I was a horror fan,
Mm-hmm.
a horror fan. So I was a baby and didn't want to watch the Saw movies because I was thinking, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of people getting ripped to shreds,
Mm-hmm.
and it is
To a point.
to a point.
Yeah.
But there is so much more than that.
Yeah, it's definitely become a part. I will say it's become a
Mhm.
part of the expectations of a Saw film for sure.
Yeah.
But as we're going to talk about, we're going to, in this episode, discuss the first 4 films, which I
Yes.
consider the Jigsaw films.
I
So
agree.
these are the films that deal with the Jigsaw killer, who is the name behind the films. And then the final 4 deal more with like his legacy. Essentially, our main villain, quote unquote, dies.
Hmm.
And so, but obviously there's 4 more movies to get through, and so his legacy kind of lives on. And I feel like those 4 films deal with that. So Saw
Yeah.
5 to 8 deal with that more.
There's 8 Saw movies.
There's 8 now, and when we're recording this, the new one's out.
Yeah.
And then they just announced that they're working on Saw X. So there you go. It can only be as good as Jason X in my mind. So there
Okay,
you
but Jason
go.
X is pretty dope.
It is amazing.
Okay.
And when we finally decide to tackle that mountain, we have some feelings.
Listen, so James A. Janice is doing kill counts.
Yes.
He's redoing a bunch of them.
James of Dead Meat YouTube fame.
One of our favorite YouTube channels,
Yeah.
I'll say. He's redoing his Friday the 13th kill count.
Right. And don't let the name fool you. It's not just about literally just dinging numbers. He talks a lot about behind the scenes stuff and a lot of how it's made and everything. It's very, very interesting. And if you are into horror films, or if you want to learn more about films you like, or learn some interesting new films to like, then Dead Meat's great for that, I think.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we're talking about the first 4, and the first one I feel like does not live up to the hype that. What I mean by that is, I think if you're getting into the Saw films with what you know in 2021 about Saw films, Saw 1 sucks. It's very light in terms of what goes on. It's not, it's one scenario essentially. I mean, you occasionally jump out of the bathroom trap to a couple of other places, but it's a very focused film.
Yeah.
It's not it's like when you first listen to Metallica after your parents tell you it's devil music, and it's just like, it's really not.
This is a song about putting a baby to sleep.
Right.
Like,
right.
what are you talking about?
Not like that. But yeah, I just think it's one of those things where it's just like, it's grown in retrospect through the rest of the films.
Yeah.
And other films do put the scenes and the gore first in some scenarios.
Big time.
Whereas the first one, I don't think it's really that. There's definitely some gross stuff.
Oh yeah, there's definitely moments like the original, like, reverse bear trap scene that spooked me. But like, you don't see what it does to a human until Saw 7, 6.
Saw 6, I believe.
I think so. There's a lot of movies, man.
No, 7.
7.
Mm-hmm.
We're bound to lose track
because
of them.
8 is Jigsaw, and that has nothing to do with
You're
those
right.
characters. So 7 is the last
7
to do.
is Saw 3D.
Yeah. No?
Yeah?
Yes?
I think.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
It's confusing.
There's a lot of movies.
They start to blend together, and I almost have to praise them because they get all of the same cast throughout the entirety of these movies.
That's so
And
rare.
I think that's part of what makes it so confusing, is you are literally going from movie to movie to movie. Now, yeah, flashbacks and everything, but essentially every movie happens after the movie. Like, you're literally binging one continuous story, it feels like, and it's just, I think that's daunting and exhausting, and I think that's where it gets confusing, and I think that's where people start to turn off the plot and just watch the entertainment of it. And that said, I mean, these are gory movies. They're scary movies.
Yeah.
Like, there is blood and guts throughout some of these.
There is a jump scare.
So if you're not into that, if you're squeamish, or if you don't enjoy being scared, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. But
Yeah.
I think they're good movies. If you like scary movies, I think they're worth watching.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and I have no shame in saying that there are some scenes that I have to look away from.
Right.
Like, I will cover my eyes and watch through my fingers.
Well, and that's kind of the point of it. And I don't think, except in a few cases, does it really like celebrate the gore and horror that like it's made out to.
Yeah.
Like, it's expected that this is, living in this horrible enjoyment of gore and everything, and in reality it's not really relishing in it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that if you want to, you can. I mean, the one that Saw specifically gets compared to a lot of the times is like Hostel. And I think Hostel is one where, no, the bad guys are bad for no good reason, and they just want to hurt people, and all of the stuff is designed to, like, affect you viscerally. Whereas the other things, like with a lot of Saw, and I'm not defending everything, because, I mean, executives get involved, different writers, different producers, everything. Like I'm not saying it's all covered under the umbrella, but I think more often than not, it's more a matter of there's at least a purpose to what's happening. There's a reason why you want to continue watching,
Mhm.
not to be grossed out. Like
Yeah.
there's a goal.
Like, there's some scenes of body horror in Ready or Not.
Hmm.
I think those scenes were done incredibly well. Like, there's only
Sorry, my camera keeps like it doesn't like my pale skin.
I like your pale skin. I like your entire
So I
face.
apologize to anyone watching
Yeah.
this that keeps getting blinded by my camera light. But there you go.
It's fine. They'll get over it. But in Ready or Not, like they do those scenes so well that it's barely there.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So Saw and Hostel and that like era of really like there was a
It
big
was
shift between
2000s.
where we go from it's scary because it's creepy to it's scary because I'm like it makes me feel
Yeah.
physically unnerved because I
Yeah.
mean it's like guys getting hit in the nuts. You feel that if you're a guy. It's one of those things where if you watch some things in Saw, you feel it like when things go through hands or something like that. Like it goes for that of just like making you uncomfortable as if you were experiencing it, but it's not just to make you like live that way. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things like much like the characters that get put in these traps, you kind of are compelled to keep going because there's a goal. Unlike with like Hostel, which I do think is what is generally referred to as torture porn, less than this a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, where it's literally just the
Yeah.
gore. It's just the grossness and the meanness and the ugliness.
Yeah. I mean, you get movies like The Interview or The Audition that are just
Two very
two
different
very
movies.
different movies.
Very different movies.
The Audition, the Japanese horror film, The Audition,
Yes.
which was a movie that freaked me out as well.
Well,
Like I could not finish that movie the first time I watched it.
much like that one. So that one has like a nail scene,
It has a nail
fingernail scene.
scene. It has
But what's that one
needles.
with the blind kid, or the kid with the bad glasses, where the stranger like steals his
Oh,
glasses or something?
that it's Open House.
Open House. That one has a scene
Jeez.
that again, it's
Yeah.
one of just this
He
is a horrible person doing horrible things,
he takes the contacts out of his eyes
so he
and then
can't
releases
see.
him
Yeah, and just lets him go,
and
and it's
breaks the mom's hands so that she can't call for help. That movie, it screwed me
so
up so much.
and that is although I think and it's weird to say, and I just have to put out there that we're gonna say things like that come off a little weird, but like I enjoy that movie more
Yeah.
in its entirety than I do like Hostel. And I don't mean to pick on Hostel. It's just
Eh,
Hostel's always been one of those ones where it's like all the good stuff that movies like Open House, which I know came much later, things like The Audition, things like Saw, things that they do well
mhm.
within a story. Hostel just does for the fear factor, the awe
Yeah.
factor, and I think that's where associating that with this, if you like that, that's fine. But saying that this and Saw or other films even are on the same level, I think is a little unfair,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It it says a lot about a movie what you watch it for.
Right.
And I think like that's a genre of film that people go to for the kills.
Yeah,
Like
like people
it's
leave
fine.
talking about that and everything, and
Yeah.
again to a point, some of Saw, but at the same time, what they're trying to get you to talk about is the plot, the characters,
Yeah.
the espionage. I don't think that's the right word for it, but you know what I mean. Like,
The
and
intrigue.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's what we want to focus on. That's what we want to talk about throughout our review of it and the story of Saw. And again, that's the focus is that there is a story to Saw. It might be confusing to some, or it might be news to others, but there is a story and it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe this is for those who can't stomach watching it, maybe or whatnot. I don't know.
You're
And I
fine.
don't promise that we're gonna do a full detailed essay of
No.
everything. We only have so much time, but the idea is to get you interested enough that maybe you check out the new movie. COVID guidelines are lifting in some places, and if you're lucky enough, you can go to the theaters and see this new movie.
Please still
I
remain to
think
be
that'd be
safe.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Don't just go willy nilly. I mean, some people might have their beliefs and whatnot, but like, do it safely. But this is a movie that's coming out, and that's a big deal right now.
Mhm.
And so, if you are at least interested enough to check out the new movie, great. If not, Some of these are on, I believe, some streaming services. So, you know,
we have them on Apple TV.
yeah, like I get confused sometimes with what we have and what's streaming. So I won't promise that it's any one particular place, but I know it's out there.
It's
And
somewhere.
I know for a fact it's like $3.99 on Amazon. So
Yeah.
there you go. So, like you mentioned, you didn't really get into these until much later. I remember I ended up watching these. I watched the first one illegally. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the record, I guess.
This has been a sting
Listen,
operation. I'm actually a cop.
right.
Like
It's been a very long sting operation. No, so like this is back in the day when I watched a lot of things on the internet through some free site where it's bootleg. It's just
1,
some
2, 3
guy sitting in the
movies.
cameras and like
Yeah.
or sitting in the cinema with a camera.
How did he get in there?
Right.
He's
It's
so
very
small.
tiny. It's Paul Rudd. So, and so I remember watching this one that way. Oh, and it was that time when I would like hear about something or see something, and it would be very much a like I know I can't like openly investigate or watch this, so let me go to the internet. So I just like Google it. I mean,
Yeah.
I discovered so many things from just like well, it was just like, Freddy versus Jason. Oh, it's a real movie, and then like pirated versions of it. And like,
Yeah, of course.
it was the early days of the internet. Everybody did it,
We
okay?
still need to
Goodness
watch
gracious.
Sadako versus Kiyako.
Right, because
It's
that's
so
that's the
tense.
beauty. You know you have arrived as a horror icon when you fight another horror icon. So yeah, and then it was really that I watched that then made me very interested, and I think it was around the time of Saw 2, so I ended up watching that through Blockbuster, and then it just was kind of a trail
Best.
from there,
Yeah.
which is how most of my like horror franchises happen. Is I find one that's really interesting, and it just opens the floodgates for all the others to come through.
Puppet Master.
Yeah, Puppet Master, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all of those where it's just like, I mean, even Alien, that was because of Alien versus Predator,
Yeah. And you had the
So,
benefit of having a mom who encouraged you to
yeah.
watch those kinds of
No,
movies.
not Saw, not Saw
Yeah,
at
she didn't
all.
like Saw.
No, but the other ones, the ones with the wisecracking villains or the crazy hijinks and premarital sex, she was fine with those. It was when it got down to bear traps and jigsaws that she was like, maybe that's a little too much. But no, I really enjoy it, and all throughout the history of Saw, they've had a pretty iconic cast.
Yes.
Pretty heavy hitters. I mean, in the first one, we have Carrie Elwes of
Yes.
Robin Hood Men in Tights fame,
And
and other
Leslie,
things, and
as
Psych,
you wish.
and Psych. Yeah, and Princess Bride. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, the best movie ever.
We have Danny Glover, who is surprisingly not too old for this, and then
In fact, he might be a little young for it.
and then who would later become a household name because of these films, Tobin Bell.
Yes.
So.
God bless Tobin Bell. Love the man.
And then, obviously, we have to shout out our favorite horror icon, who is James Wan.
Love that man.
Creator and writer and director of this first film.
Yes.
He produced on everything else, and I think this was a time when they were discovering it helps having familiar creatives continuing in the process.
Yes.
Where it's like, even if you don't direct, can you at least be involved? And James Wan's always been one of those where it's like, if he creates something, he'll do it until he's not interested, and then he'll let someone else do it. But he'll give you advice.
Yeah.
With again, iconically creating the Insidious movies, the Conjuring movies.
Yeah.
Like honestly, he's a horror aficionado. He's a modern day Wes Craven, and I feel like that's a lot to say. And that doesn't mean like
I agree though.
Like person to person. I just mean like he's doing the kinds of things that Wes Craven has a legacy for in terms of he's creating new and creative and interesting horror, new ways to be scared of things, and also intriguing ways to be scared of things. So
yeah. I will hold until the day that I die that two of the best jump scares that have ever gotten me are
right.
the table scene in Insidious.
Yep, Darth Maul.
Exactly. And the sheet.
In
The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
And Hide and Go Clap. That's
which is the same one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Same one.
So, and we will be talking about those because The Conjuring is getting another movie soon, so we're excited about that. And
yes.
He's not just good at this. I even said when we were talking about Justice League, he does other things good. Yeah. He did Aquaman, and he's working on Aquaman too, and that's honestly exciting to me. I love what he does with film, and he's just got such an eye for things. He also did Furious 7.
Yeah.
Aquaman and Furious 7 are the only two where it's just like, how? You know?
Yeah.
And but then it's all horror from there, and he's just good at everything he does.
In-
I have not seen a bad movie.
In this house, we love and respect James Wan.
Right. But
That's it.
you cannot have him at his soft. You do not love him at his dead silence, okay?
Oh.
Same with Donnie Wahlberg, okay? We're going to talk about it, but like that is the
I want
epitome.
to talk about Donnie Wahlberg.
I love Donnie. He's the best Wall and Berg. Thank you.
He is the best Wahlberg.
So our first film, so again, I mentioned it's a big story. So it starts in the first one and it really does continue throughout. And it builds retroactively. So a lot of it isn't going to be watch this movie and see all these things you missed. It's going to be watch this movie, then this movie, and then this movie, and see all the things in the first one you probably missed. And that's really what they seek to do with every new film in this franchise is to add to the story and the intrigue and the conspiracy of it and everything. It's very much a very glorified and blown up version of whodunit
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of stakes, and the stakes being body horror. And so it's involving our aptly named Jigsaw Killer, played by Tobin Bell, who is John Kramer. And essentially, and again, I guess at this point we should say spoilers. I don't know,
Spoiler.
but we're gonna talk about things that don't happen necessarily in these movies, to help these movies make sense, because you kind of have to.
There are 3 movies that happen at the same time.
2 movies.
2.
Yeah, just 2, just
Okay,
3 and 4.
2.
Yep.
Gotcha.
We'll get there. So So essentially, we find out throughout the first 4 films that John had lung cancer. He was
Yes.
diagnosed with lung cancer. It's inoperable, and many things suffered for it. One thing that was very big of that is his marriage. You find out you're dying. You have lost your child with your wife, and just things start to stack up. And so John Kramer attempts suicide. It doesn't work, but afterwards he's like, maybe life's not so bad.
Which
It's one of those things where it's like, I guess I'm supposed to live. I guess I don't know.
have
I don't
feelings
I don't
about
feel
that.
like there should be much commentary on
No.
suicide from John Kramer. Okay, I'm not saying that.
That's what I'm saying.
I just mean, well, obviously we'll get into his motive. So whereas you might be much like the cops played by Danny Glover and Ken Leung in this, you might be tempted to think that no, this guy is just sadistic and killing people. John Kramer doesn't believe so. He believes he's rehabilitating people.
Yeah.
And so after his near-death failed suicide attempt, he kind of has this aha moment where he's like, wow, I almost died and that made me want to live. Maybe I should do this for other people and change their lives too.
I'd like to point out that all he did was get out of a car.
Right?
And pull a very
mean,
long shard of glass out of his side.
I don't think it was glass. I think it was like a pipe or something. Like
Oh my God.
he was okay.
He was fine.
But-
he wasn't fighting like
But
rats.
it was the idea of being brought close to death made me appreciate life. That's his whole thing he takes throughout all of it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a solid case, okay? I'm just saying what he's saying.
in the court of Jigsaw.
Right. Now, here's the thing. I don't entirely disagree. as I finish my statement before the FBI shows up.
All right.
No, I do believe consequences have to happen, unfortunately, a lot of the times before we're willing to change as people. And so, no, I don't think you should be put in death traps to change.
No.
I don't think changing under pressure is real change. And that's a whole nother idea to tease out. But like I understand the idea that sometimes I have to have consequences. I have to lose things. I have to pay the price to change and realize I was doing it wrong, or I was not doing the right thing and whatnot.
Mhm.
Like, I think that's a fact of life. I think that is true.
I get you.
I don't think you should go building bear trap masks for people to help them experience
You
that.
shouldn't build a puppet. Like that's what.
Okay,
Like-
here's the thing though. They try to make him out. Obviously, that was a gimmick for the first movie.
Yeah.
Creepy mascot thing. That was a popular thing. They throughout the rest of the films, they try to make him out very sympathetic, very tactful, very serious. Where did the puppet come from then? Like, that's such a serial killer. You can understand why Danny Glover's character would not like you, not agree with you,
Yeah,
think
if you
you're a
just have a
homicidal
puppet.
maniac. Yeah, like, come on. Puppets are
James
bad.
Wan
It
loves
was it was
puppets.
literally because of that. It had to
Yes.
be because of that. There has to be a puppet.
He loves puppets, man.
He put a puppet in all of his movies, guaranteed.
So many puppets.
Right? William Dafoe in Aquaman? No, puppet. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, so they're hunting Jigsaw. And there's a couple of instances where we see these traps play out, and essentially it's that you get a recorded tape that says, "I want to play a game. This is your goal. Do it in the allotted time if you want to live, and you are free." And it involves doing something much like John Kramer's car accident, where it was some sort of near death, something painful, something that made you almost feel like, "Whoa, this life I hate, I almost lost, and I didn't like that. So maybe I don't hate life as much."
Here's the thing. I'm going to be saying that a lot.
Sure.
Amanda killed a dude to get the key out of his stomach. Did his life not need to be changed?
I don't remember the specifics of that guy. So, yeah, so one of the victims of one of these is Amanda, who becomes very important later.
Yes.
She's the one that gets into the reverse bear trap, which is kind of the Saw trap. That's the most iconic thing, I think, from these films, because it's such a look to see, like, essentially a bear trap strapped to someone's face, and if it goes off, instead of closing, it opens and your face is in that. But the like you mentioned earlier, we never get to see that delivered upon until much, much later.
Yeah.
And so, but Amanda's one who goes through this, and guess what? She was a druggie, and she didn't value life and all this. Like, there's all these things that were why she was in the trap. And she cleaned up afterwards and all this other stuff. So she and John Kramer, Jigsaw, believed then obviously that worked. She's one of the few survivors. And, it is one of those instances where if anything dangerous happens, you change your patterns after that. Like, you don't think much about walking to your car at night, but then something happens, and then every night you think and you're more careful. You care about where you park and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we do the same thing when we see news reports about, criminal activity in places. Oh, we park a little closer. We make sure we leave when there's a little bit more light. It's the same concept, just lethal. So, there's some truth to what he's doing, but he does it wrong.
Jigsaw so
No,
much.
I'm not. I'm just saying I can understand where he's coming from. He did it wrong, though.
Okay,
He is a criminal. He is a bad guy.
He do a crime.
He do a crime. So the first film is all about one Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, in tight tights.
In tight
No,
tights.
not tight enough. If I'm being honest.
No, I mean this was in his era of I'm not Wesley anymore, so I'm gonna put on some weight. He looked fine.
He was very honest. He was just
Listen, man.
He was just a dude.
Cary
Like
Elwes.
he stopped being pretty boy. He just started being him.
Yeah.
Like there's times when people do that, and actors do that in life, and people are just like, they're not who I thought they were. And it's
Val
like,
Kilmer.
dude, right? Like, goodness gracious.
Leave Val Kilmer alone. He's still Batman.
He's meh. Meh. It's Val Kilmer though.
Fine.
But
okay.
I mean, leave him alone. But I'm not defending his Batman.
He is my Huckleberry.
Right.
We're not going to get into this.
So, Lawrence Gordon and Steven. No, I'm sorry, not Steven. Who is this other guy?
Who is Steven?
Adam. Sorry, I don't know. Steven's the other cop.
You get a wiki.
The cops are David and Steven.
Okay.
Cop names.
We had to remind ourselves.
Oh yeah, there's so much stuff, guys. There's so much stuff.
There's so much movie.
But Gordon and Adam, so they're the two that are trapped. They wake up. So essentially, what every film does is you see a few other traps that kind of, ooh, these are the show-offs. They're not meant to win. They're just meant to kind of get you tense about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we get a few of those, and then there's the trap. And in this one, the trap is for Dr. Gordon and Adam. Dr. Gordon, so he's a doctor, and photographer and freelancer Adam.
Yes.
And essentially they wake up, there's a dead man in the room, and they're chained to pipes.
Yes.
And they're told they have to figure out a way to escape before the time runs out, essentially.
Yeah, also, I have an issue. How could he have caught that key that went down the drain?
I mean, I think there was a way. I think if Amanda, dun dun dun, who survived the other trap, it's revealed later that she actually helped set this one up. She kind of just haphazardly puts the key there. She doesn't take care. And I think that's one thing John Kramer proves he does, is he does everything very methodically so that they have the best chance. He
Yes.
gives them chances. She didn't care. She was just kind of there. And so, they wake up and that's their whole thing. But there's also clues around. There's the one tape recorder that tells them that you've got to get out, like figure out a way.
Mhm.
And then they each have another tape or something like that. I think, if I remember right,
Yes.
something that kind of pits them against each other. Because what we don't know is that, so Dr. Gordon was the one who actually gave John Kramer his critical diagnosis and said, you have inoperable cancer. Um, but then, so Adam's connection to it all is that he is the freelance photographer that's been hired to follow Dr. Gordon by the cops because for some reason the cops believe that Dr. Gordon is Jigsaw. Now, why would they believe that?
They have his pen light that was found in a scene.
Well, that and then like other like little doctory things where they're like, oh, this kind of lines up because there is a third player in the game.
Yes,
and so later we find out there's a Zepp is his name.
Yes.
That's his nickname. I don't remember what his name is, but he's an orderly from the hospital. And so basically, while John Kramer was there, what you're led to believe is that he conscripted Zepp to help him because nobody likes you at that hospital. They all make fun of you and steal your lunch money. Zepp, help me kill him. Like he's made out to be like, oh, I'm an apprentice. Like he sees value in me and I'm helping and everything. And so he's actually been assisting in one way or the other. And so that's what led the cops to suspect Dr. Gordon.
Yes. And during this whole thing, Zepp has Dr. Gordon's wife and child.
Right. And so in the end, we find out that that's his game. So there, like that's the Saw like onion of things. Is there's another game within the game. So the other game is Zepp's game, where he's actually a victim as well, and his game is to just kill them if they don't escape, but essentially monitor Gordon and Adam.
I think it's if Adam doesn't kill Dr. Gordon at a certain time, then he kills the family.
I think so.
It's one of those.
I mean, at the end of the day, that scenario doesn't happen. It all goes wrong. So, good for Gordon's wife. She helps escape. Like they figure it out.
Yeah,
they're fine.
They're doing great.
Again, and that's why I say like a lot of this first movie isn't what you would think a Saw movie is if you've seen or heard of Saw before this.
Yeah, you know what? This Saw is my favorite Saw.
It's
movie.
Probably the most tame of them all, and so a lot of it's just these scenarios getting unraveled and introduced, and in the end, they realize the only real way to escape is to cut off your foot.
Mm-hmm. The most Saw scene.
Oh yeah. And good for Cary Ellis because he sells it too. Like he just goes.
He does.
Dr. Gordon cuts off his foot, so obviously then he can slide off the shackle and he just crawls away. With the promise of coming back for I'll come back. I'll come back for you. Oh my
Cary
gosh.
Ellis doesn't have a good American
him and
accent.
his theater acting there. And so Adam's kind of just there, and as he's like this dude just cut off his foot in front of me and all this other stuff.
The dude that was dead in the middle of the floor
stands up, and it's John Kramer.
Yes.
This part I'd never got. I never understood this other than he was alive the whole time.
It shocked me when I first watched this because I had no context.
Well, really, until even the wrap up when I originally watched this, the ending is supposed to make you realize he's Jigsaw. Like, I didn't get that because when he has the makeup and all the other stuff, because he looked like he shot himself.
Yeah.
He made himself up to look like a dead body. So in the end, he doesn't look like himself. So, or at least not how you've seen him in flashbacks.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize the truth until the second movie
when
it's like, wait, that's the same guy. I had to put it together. But yeah, he rises up and he's basically just like the key for your locks in the tub, dude. And poor Ad, and this is the moment. Like this is when the music starts and this is when all the stuff like all the flashbacks of just like, oh my gosh, I should have just listened. Like except in Adam's case, like you mentioned earlier, the key was just kind of placed, and so he woke up in a tub and it went down the drain. It wasn't supposed to do that.
No.
So he got trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Adam was just a victim at that point. Like, I don't remember the whole deal. I mean, Dr. Gordon was cheating on his wife. That was part of why he was brought into this trap.
Mhm.
That's part of the whole deal with that. I don't remember Adam's thing. I don't remember what it was with Adam.
He was a blackmailer. I think that was his whole thing.
I don't know, but I mean, he kind of still got the raw deal in this one.
He got the raw deal. He got the best kidnapping scene.
Oh yeah, because there's the pig face, which becomes a kind of iconic apprentice thing. That was Amanda all along and everything. So
yeah, and a fun little tidbit that we learned was that during this filming of this movie, Tobin Bell was actually laying on the ground the entire time.
Yeah, he did that.
He was
not
just
like not for consecutive.
Yeah.
Like anytime they were shooting, where his body had to be in the scene, he did that.
He was just there.
Cool.
Do you think that
commitment?
like they just hung out at lunch and were just like, dead body, huh?
Right.
Cool.
So yeah. So the first movie, that's really it. It's more about the scenario building, I think, in the first film, because there's not as much story to work with.
Yeah.
It's only later that we start to get like later films make Saw 1 more interesting. Knowing all the things that go on behind the scenes and leading up to that moment make it more interesting. On its own, it's really just about, the twists and the scenario and everything. Like, but it's still really interesting.
Yeah, it's the exploration of what would you do to survive. It's a animal trapped in shackle that's like, would you gnaw your own leg off?
And what it introduces there and what it continues to build upon definitely is this idea that no one really, no one's ever completely innocent or selfless. Like what you see throughout the films, especially as more contestants get involved, is people are going to be bad people. A lot of the times they're almost unchangeable, and that starts to get to Jigsaw's apprentice Amanda, and that's what kind of gets built upon later. Is that she just gets this attitude of, I'm not changing people, I'm punishing people, and that's a big difference. At least John Kramer tries to have some hope for his people or for his victims, but like at the end of the day, what you see most often now, Dr. Gordon and Adam kind of try and work it out, but like generally people still mess up. Like even if given chances, people mess up all the time. And if you can get anything from Saw, it's just the idea of don't waste the chances you've been given. Like, value life, value what you have, and don't be selfish. Don't waste it.
Yeah, even moving on to Saw number 2, like the whole message of Saw number 2 is all you had to do was listen.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Saw 2 doesn't immediately follow up. Saw 1. The big twist at the end is it ends up where Saw 1 was, which is an interesting tie together.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's a new scenario. So there
new
are
Saw
some
scenario.
Yeah. So there's some side traps. Again, we're not really talking about the traps and everything. That those aren't the more interesting parts.
Yeah.
But there's the side traps, but then the main trap is actually more elaborate. So the last one we were trapped to one room. This one we're trapped to one house. It's called the gas house, essentially, and that's what it is. Is there's a noxious gas being filtered throughout the building, and if they don't find the way out in time, they'll all die.
Yes.
And again, there's the idea. So even in Adam's tape, it says, the key, blah blah blah. He gives hints, very much so. Now, could it be more obvious? Maybe.
It could be way more obvious.
Whatever. So in this one, he says, the key to escape is in the back of your mind.
Yes.
And part of that comes from, like, they're going to experience traps related to their life. So everyone has their own trap meant for them based on their sins and experience. So it's almost this idea of, I've got to travel back and relive myself and I'll find a way. That's not the truth. You're not meant to find the antidote. If you go for the antidotes, you die, actually. And that's the thing, is they're spread throughout. So the tantalizing thing of the traps in this one are go for the cure. But that's not the point. The point is to escape. Not unscathed, but to escape. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, the solution is that they had tattooed on the back of their necks the combination to the lock of the safe that was in the very first room they all woke up in.
Yep.
So the back of your mind, it's on the back of your head. Get it? So if they had just looked at the back of each other's heads, they would have gotten the code and everybody would have escaped and been happy.
If John Kramer had gone into like the pun races, the galactic
Oh
pun
my
races, he would absolutely rule. But there are so many puns in these movies.
Oh yeah, it's I mean, and that's the thing is
Yeah.
like you can I just imagine him just sitting with his journal and just going back and forth like no that's not cool enough. Whatever. So
Yeah, and while this is all happening, Danny Wahlberg, Donnie, whatever,
the good one.
he's married to Jenny McCarthy.
He's fine. I can't speak for his spouse. She's not invited, but Donnie can come on the show any day.
Okay, he's the old kid on the block now.
He's cool.
He's
look,
fine.
I enjoy me a Donnie Wahlberg, okay? I love Blue Bloods. I love Tom Selleck. He is my spiritual grandfather. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
So,
and that's fine.
If I could be a Reagan, I'd be happy.
You'd have to be a cop, though.
I wouldn't have to be. That's part of the point of the show. Ha ha.
Ha ha.
On CBS. We're not sponsored. Stop. Stop. Anyway.
So Donnie Wahlberg.
Yes.
I don't remember his name.
Eric Matthews.
Thank you. Like Boy Meets World.
Okay.
Eric Matthews, he's the older brother.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't watch that show too much.
And
it was one of those like on TV when I was in the room shows.
That show showed me so much about life. Man, Donnie Wahlberg.
Yes.
So his son has got kidnapped and
he's
is in the house. And Jigsaw is one of his first things that he says to him is, "Your son is in a safe place."
No, okay, here's the thing. So a commentator said that like that was supposed to be a thing. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he was trying to hint that he's in the safe. I think that was just dialogue, okay?
That was dialogue, but it's so funny.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. So, yes. So what we find out, the twist upon a twist upon a twist, is that the house incident happened forever ago.
Yeah.
They think it's happening right now. And so they're interrogating Jigsaw in his workshop, when in reality, the house is already done.
Yeah, they have CCTV footage.
Right. And so his son is literally in a safe in the room with Matthews when he's interrogating Jigsaw. That's supposed to be, again, the big twist. Yeah. Again, everything with Saw has to do with the first room. If you get it right, the first room, you're fine. Like, listen carefully and pay attention to the first room. Because, like, everything has a flashback all the way to the beginning. Remember when he said that one thing in that one place at that one time? That was your hint. You messed it up.
I have an auditory processing disorder.
Right, you would be horrible. Die. Yeah, you'd be horrible.
You'd be fine.
Oh my gosh, like escape room on steroids. I'd be fine. Yeah,
you'd be halfway through the first tape and it'd be like,
I'd get you out with me. Yeah.
You'd be dragging me.
Unless there was a case where it only involved one person, then I'd let you go.
Aww.
Yeah, I love you. So that's the big twist, and so but the thing, so it's less about your son is safe.
He's safe.
Why don't you sit on that safe and come talk to me, boy? Like, no. So his whole thing is talk to me.
Yeah, talk to me for this allotted amount of time.
Right. Well, because essentially he's in his own game.
Mm-hmm.
The other game wasn't for Eric to a point, because all the other contestants of the game were criminals he put away. While although not great people, he put them away on crap crimes. Like, he twisted evidence to get them to where they are. So would they have still ended up in jail? Yes. Were they put in jail for the right reasons then? No. Is that right? I don't know. Like, moral ambiguity. And that's what Detective Matthews has been doing and dealing with. So even though he seems like a good guy, he's doing very questionable things. And so he gets his own game.
Yes. He has anger
And meanwhile, he hasn't been appreciating his son. So now I kidnapped your son. You appreciate him a lot more now, right? So, if you want to see somebody steal their child, apparently.
Take the kid.
Meanwhile, Amanda's been with the son throughout the trap and everything. Yes. And she's portrayed as a victim who fell on hard times, got re-kidnapped by Saw. This is the first ever double entendre Saw-ness. But it's revealed later, no, she's involved in accomplishing.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about her trap for a second.
Sure.
Jumping into
hers.
Pile of needles.
It was not hers, actually.
Oh, was it?
It was for someone else. That's the thing. So there's this one guy who basically just ruins it for everybody because he's a jerk. He's just like he selfishness again, like we were talking about. Somebody's going to be selfish, and so It was meant for someone. We never heard the tape. We never got to play who it was for, I believe. But essentially, it's one of those things, like there's one cure in there, and she has to go through this pool of syringes to find the real one. And yeah, it's just horrible.
That was one of those that I had to look away because
that one's tough.
I don't like needles.
Yeah, like something about just like a pool of syringes, like this idea of multiple like entry points, like
and you see
very
them sticking out of her
They
skin.
did the work on those effects, very interesting.
The
very
prosthetics were
wow. Like to be able to make it both realistically look like she's been stuck, but she's also in needles. Like
every time I think about it, I just get like a shiver and I hate it.
And so, but yeah, her goal was to save the kid essentially. Then so Eric basically forces Jigsaw to take him to the house. Of course, he gets there and it's empty. But lo and behold, in the basement of that house, though, is the bathroom where our first Saw game took place. And so, and then Amanda basically jumps Eric Matthews and leaves him there to die. Because essentially he failed his game. Like, he didn't sit and talk to John. He forced him to take him to the house. Turns out, if he had just listened, it was all over to begin with. And it was just, if he had just done the right thing first, if he had listened to his son, if he had just listened and done the right thing, he wouldn't be where he is. And so now he's trapped in the original Saw bathroom.
Arguably a more brutal escape when it actually does happen, though.
Yeah, which let's go ahead and... Is that in this one?
I think it's in Saw 3.
Let's see. Yep. It picks up right there. So we're kind of breezing through, but it's also just because we have time to get through. But,
Saw 3 and 4 happen.
When you focus on the story, yes. So, actually, that's a smart way to tackle this. So, yeah, if you did not know, Saw 3 and 4 happen simultaneously. The only way you would know that is the ending of Saw 4.
Yes.
And so, although they happen at the same time, there's two different tests. So, let's talk about Saw 3 test first. But, yes, we do open up with Matthews in the bathroom.
Breaking his own foot.
In less than 60 seconds, he decides what to do.
Yes.
I'm just going to say, he puts Adam and Gordon to shame.
He commits to it.
To be fair, so yes, did he not appreciate his son enough? Was he not a good enough father? No. When the rubber meets the road, is he willing to do what needs to get done for his son, though?
He will pick up a toilet seat
and
break his foot.
Yeah, like,
beyond recognition.
And just wiggles that gummy worm of a foot out of the shackle.
So gross.
And then walks off. He just walks it off.
He just limps.
Catches up to Amanda. Basically almost kills her.
Yeah.
But she gets the jump on him. And then another of Jigsaw's disciples finds him. We don't really get that revealed until later, but essentially Detective Hoffman picks up Eric Matthews and decides to use him for his personal gain in the Saw 4 trap.
Which
we'll
is
get there.
A favorite of mine, personally.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
I do love that one.
So, as far as Saw 3, so this is focused on Amanda. So, if anything, Saw 3 and 4 focus on the apprentices of John Kramer, because John Kramer is succumbing to his illnesses. He's dying. And essentially, he's been doing all of this throughout his dying process, but it's just getting to the point where he can no longer do it. But he's also, though, faced with the truth that who he's picked to be his disciples and his legacy are not who should carry on the name, although he has a favorite, that being Hoffman, and we see that in the next one. I think he's a much better successor, but he's still got ill motives. Again, the least you can say for John Kramer is he kind of has a point, but Amanda, again, she's lost all hope. And I think, honestly, the house did it to her. She was just like, no, these people ain't learning squat.
That's
We're just
fair.
like, let's just punish them. Which is what our American justice system has turned into. Let's not rehabilitate criminals. Let's just punish them, and they'll just always be criminals.
Scoop, there it is.
I mean, like, she basically just goes full courthouse on it of just like, no, I think they're bad, and they should be punished for being bad, not changed for being bad. When we stop looking at bad as, like, this death sentence, again, okay, we all saw Star Wars. Palpatine is bad. He was not getting better. I get it. But that is, like, 1% of the factor. Yeah. Most people are bad for a reason, and I believe should be given chances to change. Forgiveness is a whole nother conversation. I understand criminal behavior. I understand loss of life. All that stuff. It sucks. Saw 3 literally deals with that. But when it comes down to dehumanizing and making it just about we're punishing bad people for being bad people that are always going to be bad people. I don't think that's the right way to look at things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Saw 3 dives into that because it deals with a father in a trap because he cannot let go of the fact that his son died due to a negligent driver.
Yeah.
He was killed in an accident because they don't really say, I think, what the guy was doing. It was, I think, predating like texting and driving kind
Yeah.
of thing, but essentially,
He just wasn't paying attention.
dude wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
So it involves the guy that was driving the car that killed the kid. It involves the witness who changed her testimony because she just, I guess, didn't want to be involved. It involves the judge who basically gave a very lenient
Yeah.
punishment.
He has the grossest
Yeah.
of all of them.
And then Jeff, who's the dad, who cannot move on,
Mm-hmm.
which is not necessarily his crime. It's not the idea of moving on from your grief. That's the misconception of this movie. It's more about the fact of the feelings he harbors towards those people.
Yeah.
And that's all of his tests. He has to save the people that were involved in the death of his son.
Yep.
And that's like,
it's intense.
that's tough stuff. Like, I like the purpose of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so now this is not an Amanda creation.
Yes.
This is a Jigsaw creation that she helped facilitate. So it's winnable. The problem is all along this, okay, so again, test and a test and a test. All right. So in Jeff's test, Amanda is being tested. Amanda the disciple is being tested.
Yes.
Because she's just turned homicidal. And basically her goal is to keep Jeff's wife alive. Yes, Jeff's wife is involved in this because she's a doctor who's literally keeping John Kramer alive right now.
Yes. As soon as his heart rate ends, she has a collar on, which is gnarly.
Yeah.
It's got shotgun shells all around it.
And it will detonate if John dies.
Yeah.
Motivation, right?
Right?
And so much like when your kid's not listening and won't behave, and you're just like, you're going to break that, and you want to take it away, but you're like, all right, I'm going to let you have the toy. And then it breaks, and they come back and whine, and he's just like, I told you were going to break it. That's what he's doing to Amanda, of just like, I'm going to let you get involved in this, but I know you're going to fail.
Yep.
And it's going to be sad. And so that's the big deal of Saw 3. Meanwhile, in Saw 4, again, Detective Hoffman, the other disciple, Thing 2, has taken Eric Matthews. He's put him in a trap again and has teased Eric Matthews' partners with being able to save him, essentially.
Yes.
The idea being Hoffman is playing the smart game of, he's not really punishing people. He is trying to make his identity unknown. He's trying to cover his tracks. So much less of a John Kramer doesn't really care because he's never really been out there, which, smart on him, he's used disciples the whole time. So at the end of the day, how can Cancer Man lift these people and do these things and create this stuff? He can't. His disciples do it. So he's kind of remained the man behind the curtain. Hoffman's been doing stuff.
Yeah.
And the whole reason he's involved is because he actually copycatted Jigsaw.
With a giant freaking guillotine.
I liked this story point.
Cool.
So basically, in the height of Jigsaw murders, he uses a Jigsaw trap to kill the guy that killed his sister to be able to get away with it and just be like, oh, I guess Jigsaw just got this bad person that I just happen to know who happens to have a history with me, who I totally want to kill and told that guy in the gym about yesterday. Like, it kind of seems a little obvious.
Yeah.
I don't know,
a
but
little bit.
Whatever. It's one of those things where it's like, obviously none of the other cops would like hold it against him, but
no,
it was still wrong.
And I think a case can be made of like, well, I would do it. That
and that's where it starts
attitude.
to get, and that's where Saw gets interesting, when it starts to get relatable like that, when you start to feel some of the things. And so Kramer basically comes up to him and is basically, hey, I know what you did. You want to help me actually do the right thing, or do you just want to punish people like you do as a cop? And all that, like, and he basically is just like, you turn me in, you prove you copied me. You join me, no one has to know.
Yeah.
And so Hoffman, though, he gets this journey of trying to cover his tracks. So these people that are getting close, Eric Matthews wasn't close, but his partner Riggs and I can't remember.
It's
lady.
Luke from Luke Steiner. No, it's Carrie.
It's
Carrie. What's her face?
I
think that's her name.
Allison.
Alice.
Allison Carries. Yep.
Yeah.
So Riggs and Carrie are Matthew's partners. They are all very good at their jobs, apparently, and are getting close to Hoffman.
And Carrie is, like, obsessed with Jigsaw.
Yeah.
I remember that from the movie.
And so Hoffman's thing is less about punishment. It's more about just, I need to do something to get these people off me. Amanda takes care of Carrie.
Yes.
With an inescapable trap in Saw 3.
That one's rough.
And so in Saw 4, you're meant to think it's a time jump, but it's really not. Almost immediately after seeing his partner get killed, Riggs is then pulled into a test. Yeah. And essentially his is very gruesome in that he has to facilitate tests in order to find out the whereabouts of Eric Matthews. So his promise is, do these things and you can rescue Eric Matthews, yes, who's been trapped for months since Saw 2. And so in that, so like one of the ones is like a child molester. Like he finds a tied up child molester, and he gets to choose whether or not he gets to live or die, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's kind of pushing the boundaries of trying to understand, I guess, Jigsaw's point. Yeah. Also, it seems like he's trying to frame him a little bit.
A little bit. His was one that kind of sucks, where he has to blind himself, essentially. Mm-hmm. Like, he's able to reach 2 switches that would trigger 2 little Grim Reaper statues that poke his eyes out.
Yeah, the child molester guy.
Awful.
Yeah.
But he doesn't finish. Mm-hmm. And Riggs's whole thing is, you can't help. Right. You cannot help this man. You have to watch him do this to himself.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So Riggs, being the cop, would want to rescue the guy. Yeah. But do you want to rescue this criminal, this horrible person that's done horrible things? Like, that's Jigsaw's logic, is just like, listen, like, you want to save him, you want to do the quote-unquote right thing, but you have to ask yourself, should you? And all this other stuff. Because Hoffman's Jigsaw test for Riggs is, you can't save everyone. Like, his literal goal is to not save anyone. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those ideas, like, by the end of it, you're either going to save Matthews and get off of the case. Like, you're just going to be, you're not going to do anything. Matthews gets freed and it's all okay. Yeah. Or you're going to try and rescue everybody and ruin it. And the kicker to this test is Hoffman is in the test. Yes. So when
this is the final big test.
Right. So when Riggs gets to the end, again, his goal is to not help. Yeah. So it's literally, don't go in the room. If he had listened to, I believe there's one tape he doesn't listen to. Yeah. Or he doesn't finish, something like that. And like, he's so focused on, I'm going to rescue my friend. Yeah. So but as soon as he enters the room, so what's inside is there's this teeter-totter.
It's so elaborate and ridiculous.
This is like evil villain lair-esque elaborate. So
it makes me think, what engineering school did Hoffman go to?
Right. So on one side, you have Eric Matthews being hung, but safely, for now, on a block of ice that's being melted. That'll melt to a point where he does hang, if not saved in time.
Which drips down a teeter-totter to where Hoffman is sitting.
Yes.
With electrical wires that will electrocute him to death.
If his seesaw drops into the water and electricity, he dies. He does it, though, because he's Jigsaw. So have that in your mind. He's doing this because either one, he's going to get all curiosity off of himself. Basically, in the end, he's a victim. He's not Jigsaw. Or everybody else dies because they didn't listen, and he still gets to be Jigsaw because everybody else that was alive that suspected him is dead. Mm-hmm. So again, his whole thing is he's just trying to get off the case. Yeah. So again, obviously he barged in the room he wasn't supposed to go in, so Riggs starts a trap that ultimately kills Matthews, kills the other guy facilitating. Yeah. There was another guy, he wasn't important, and then gets Riggs shot. Yeah. And that's when Hoffman just stands up and leaves, and it's just like, well, guess you failed.
Guess I'm Jigsaw.
So I know, like, that's Saw 4, and that's like, oh my gosh, like, what? But, like...
Doesn't Saw 4 have the ending that I love so much?
Is that the one with the coffin?
No. It's the one with the tracheotomy.
Yes?
I think, we forgot to mention FBI Man.
Well, no, because that's Saw 3.
That's Saw 3.
Right?
Yes, it is. It's Saw 3. So, underneath, Saw 4 is the one with the coffin, because as soon as he leaves, he goes into the room. Jeez Louise, there's so much movie.
Oh my gosh, there is. No, Saw 5 is the one. Because Strom makes it to 5. So we're talking about Detective Strom.
We are. We're
That's
talking about
introduced-
Luke from Luke's Diner from Gilmore Girls. That's all I know him as.
So, okay, it's, you know what?
His head's in a fish tank.
I'm so confused. I know what we've said so far is true. No, so Strom, Saw 4 is Strom.
Yes,
I'm
Saw 4 is
sorry.
Strom.
Yes. So before we get there, though, all right. So far we're still on the timeline. So
Yes.
all that we've just said is right. I know it doesn't sound like we're very confident in that, but it's true.
Like we said, there's so much movie in
We've
these
covered
movies.
Saw 4, which is the Hoffman story.
Yes.
Jumping back to Saw 3, which we've pretty much set up. Essentially, he fails to do it. Every time he only saves one person, and it's just barely. And in the next test, he ends up getting killed anyway.
Yeah.
And so Jeff's whole thing, again, is to forgive and help these people escape because they can't escape on their own. And it's about that moving on, forgiving. Again, he fails at every turn and eventually gets to the end and inadvertently just starts this domino effect. So he shows up in the room where John, his wife, and Amanda are.
Mm-hmm.
By this point, Amanda's been sick of it, and she's just like, why can't we just kill them, get you fixed, whatever. Like, she's just at her wit's end, which is exactly what John knew was going to happen. So when Jeff comes in and his wife, like, freaks out, she's had enough, and she shoots the wife. She's not dead, but she shoots the wife. But then Jeff, who only had one bullet in the gun he was given earlier in the game, shoots Amanda. And basically John's just like, I told you not to suck, you know. It's just basically like, you know, like you can't listen, you can't behave.
And he gives he gives him this whole speech about, like, you can make a decision.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just freaking takes a cranial.
Well, okay, so his whole thing is, you know, listen, we can call an ambulance for your wife and all this other stuff, or you can kill me. I put you in these traps. I can understand. Yeah. And of course, obviously, Jeff takes that. But again, it's that whole thing of, have you learned anything? Yeah. Will you forgive me and help your wife? Or, because again, will you forgive these people, go through your grief with your child, but then move on? Because, dun dun dun, you have another child and a wife. And it's just like, you're neglecting who you have for who you've lost. And it's one of those things where it's like, don't forget your son, but don't forget who you have currently. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, are you going to save her, or are you going to kill me? You know, forgiveness, dude. Yeah,
and there's
forgiveness.
There's a beat where you think he's going to do it,
and then he kills Kramer, and and then a tape plays that reveals, hey, I got your daughter. Guess you shouldn't have killed me. And and then his wife dies. The collar detonates, and so it's one of those things. Again, you screwed yourself up by not listening. You blew it. You blew her. By not you didn't listen. He didn't learn anything, and I'm not saying you're necessarily supposed to, but again, like, to a point though, I think even if you weren't going to forgive the dude, your wife takes priority. Your wife was just shot. Do anything to save her, but no, you have to act out your feet. Like, no, you put me in the situation. You made me do all these horrible things, and it's just like, dude, you've got to move on and save what you got currently. Like, so that's Saw 3. So that's supposed to be the ending there of just like, no. Yeah, and go ahead. But then we jump back to Saw 4. And so there's been FBI agents investigating Hoffman. So, again, he's under investigation. His whole Saw trap was hopefully going to get him absolved of scrutiny, right? Doesn't happen. So, when he finishes up, basically, he traps the FBI agent that's been following him in a fish tank that fills with water.
Yes. Which is a freaky scenario.
Yes, absolutely. And did you say it was your favorite?
It's one of my favorites because it's the best escape in my opinion.
Okay, so because of the escape, you're right.
He doesn't even think about it. Well, he thinks about it, but
I mean, FBI training, I guess.
Pulls out a pin, unscrews it, gives himself a tracheotomy, and escapes.
Right, like, so basically he survives by being able to breathe through it, and then manages to get out. So essentially, though, what Hoffman's goal was to get Strom in a trap, killed, and off the trail. And then Hoffman was going to rescue Jeff's kid and be a hero. So yet again, his whole goal being, I'm not Jigsaw. Would Jigsaw save a child? I don't think so. So he does that, right? So he does all that. Oh, and by the way, before the FBI agent gets in his trap, he kills Jeff.
Yes.
So again, that's where it connects. That's when you realize what's happening side by side. So in Saw 4, Hoffman leads him to the warehouse where Jeff is, and Strom shoots Jeff inadvertently because Jeff just found out his kid's kidnapped, and he just opens up just like, where's my kid? And
with an empty gun.
FBI agent didn't know what to do, so he just shot him. So again, a tragedy of just like all the bad stuff that would have happened, that did happen, that wouldn't have if Jeff had just listened.
Yeah.
Just listened and learned to forgive. That's what John Kramer does. He gives the gift of forgiveness. So Hoffman does rescue the little girl, the daughter, but someone somehow gets Strom, the FBI agent, out, and she's like, hey, we got another one, and he's being loaded into the ambulance, and the movie ends with Hoffman being Jigsaw because John Kramer did die, and he thought this was a clean inheritance.
Yeah. It's
done. I am Jigsaw now. But now it's left with the worry of, does he know?
Yeah.
There's a loose thread. And so the ending, though, is interesting because it teases what's to come. And so in John Kramer's autopsy, a tape is found. And when Hoffman plays it, it basically just says, you're going to be tested.
Yeah.
We're going to see if you're worthy, essentially. And I'm just like, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, if he's not the one, he's not the one. Just give it up, John. And so we don't know what that means yet. But essentially, that's where the next films pick up, is now that we have a new Jigsaw, it's about proving he's Jigsaw and all this other stuff.
The next few films are very, like, this is what you know Saw films to be.
I think so. I really do. And that's why we split them the way we split them, and that's why I think these fit so nicely together, is because these do deal with John Kramer's story. And it's essentially, it introduces what he's trying to do and shows all the ways that it doesn't work. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Like, regardless of what he believes, none of it's working. None of it's panning out. The apprentices he thinks is going to believe and continue his legacy don't work out. Like, it's just all of that of just like, if he had just learn to appreciate life instead of just trying to force that on people through horrific means, everybody would have been happier. Yeah. Literally everybody would have been happier. But we did get cool movies out of it. So.
And if you want us to cover the next 4, let us know.
Yeah, because we weren't planning to.
Oh, we weren't?
Yeah, no, we are. Yeah.
Oh, like right now?
No, not now.
Okay.
No, we're done now.
Cut that out.
No. No, it's staying in. It's awkward and sexy, so it's staying in. So, we will be back next week with that. So,
so
but
you don't get a choice.
If you want to convince us, you like, comment, and survive. I don't know.
In front of you, there is a like button.
Right. Yes. You have 30 seconds to like it or rate it or whatever. Wherever you watch or listen to this, just let us know you love it by doing all the appropriate stars and or thumbs up. All that good stuff, and be sure to share it as well. Thank you to our patrons and for supporting us and all that we do, talking about Star Wars, horror, kaiju, all of the weirdness. We do so much weirdness, and they pay for it, and it's just funny. But we appreciate them. We also appreciate our friends over at Red5Network who talk about all kinds of other great things, including Star Wars and such. So if you need more podcasts in your life that talk about cool stuff, red5network.com is where you can check it out. Game Infinite. We're also with Game Infinite because we love games, and if you do too,
yes.
GameInfinite.net or Game Infinite on Instagram and Twitter, where you can see cosplay, news, articles, art, all kinds of things of all kinds of games that you and we enjoy. So go support Game Infinite and all that goodness. And then, we'll be back next week with more Saw. Hopefully you enjoy this. We're doing it, so
you
can't change our minds. But if you want to change our minds, just join Patreon. The link's in the description below. If we get 5 patrons, that tells us we need to stop
There's only one way that
until
we
exactly
can be
1
stopped.
week. Yeah. We'll stop until we don't stop. So
Can't stop, won't stop,
right.
might stop.
In the meantime, play a game, love life, and watch out for bear traps. I guess.
John.
I don't know.
Hey John, look down. Your butt's in a shackle.
Oh no.
You have to pet a puppy in 5 seconds. Dang it.
I win.
He won the scenario. I'm no longer Jigsaw. Goodbye, everyone.
Wait a minute. This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.